Normally we do truck talks, so we'll do a little Suburban Talk. Me and Ezekiel were talking about overcoming your fear, overcoming the things that make us feel uncomfortable, that our mind tells us we can't do because we're stuck in wanting to be perfect at something. We want it to be great. So then instead of doing it and instead of making progress towards a consistent effort, we just get stuck in that place of perfection, of wanting it to always look perfect. And then what happens is you're paralyzed and you don't do anything. And then the cycle repeats itself. So you end up being consistent in not doing it instead of consistent in doing it. And it's something I think that Instagram and social has formed us into thinking that everything has to look like a highlight reel of our lives, when the vulnerability of just be authentically who you are, where you are, why are you trying to become the person you really want to be, and just showing people that process, that you're going through the process the same way they're going through the process. We're all becoming daily. Otherwise, we're just dying, right? I would love to hear your perspective on that exact statement, that I feel, and if it's okay for me to say it, I feel scared. Because essentially, fear is scared. Like, you were scared to step out of your comfort zone. And explain to me, like, those type of feelings that you have, or explain to the audience.
Fear is natural. I mean, in the acronym of fear, I once heard a pastor say, he said, false evidence appearing real.
I've heard that acronym.
It's powerful what that does, because once you can identify that this is false evidence and it appears real, appear means it takes the shape of something. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually true, but it appears so. When we take action and that momentum begins, and you can step away, you can take that first step, that second step, and be courageous to push forward, you can dispel that apparition. It only takes a bit of movement. For me personally, like when I take my journey of either fitness, spirituality, or even music, I look at those points where I'm paralyzed in fear, and I have to ask myself, am I being triggered by something in the past? Is there something necessarily that I'm trying to avoid? And a lot of times for me, it's avoided behavior. I want to avoid the shame of looking like a beginner. I want to avoid the shame of being called out because I'm not 100% right. Because as you said, we have social media on us, which puts a magnifying glass on whatever we do.
Yep.
So I could have been doing something for 10, 15, 20 years, and because I made a mistake, I did something wrong, the peanut gallery of viewers now chimes in, oh, he's not doing it right, he's doing this, he's doing that. And really, I think, for me personally, again, I can't speak for everybody, there's a lot of ego tied there. I don't want my ego to be bruised by appearing wrong or appearing incorrect. And that's what creates that fear for me. The fear of being projected as somebody who is just playing a role as opposed to being established.
But I think that when I hear you say that, like what sparks in my eyes is remember who your audience is on social. Your audience often are the people hiding behind the keyboard, that are sitting on the couch, that are not even ambitious, that are not even doing anything. Your worst critics, the reason why they're critics is because they're actually reflecting who they are. They're not even reflecting on who you are. So all they're doing is reflecting on where they are in their life, and misery loves company, right?
Absolutely.
And here's what I do. I totally understand that feeling because we all get it. But what I tell myself is that it's the one person that's getting something out of it. It's the one person that watches the video, that reads the caption, that walks away and says, I can apply that to my life and make my life better, then it's worth it. Because the power of that one person, and then that one person shares it with another person, and then that person shares it with another person. That is the beauty of social media. It just happened the other day where I text Vaughn and Marcus, new day, new month, same mindset. Vaughn turned around and posted that on his Instagram. Then a member turned around and posted it as a reel. And just by me texting someone, not even putting on social media, created a domino effect of positivity that others can take and apply to their lives. So just remember, all it takes is one. So when you're in that space of paralyzed by fear, remind yourself that if you can make a difference in one person's life, then that's enough. And the truth is, you're really making a difference in your own life by stepping out of that fear. And that's really the most important thing, because without you becoming your best version, then you're not gonna be able to help anybody else anyways. So you spoke a lot of truth and you spoke a lot of authenticity. There's so many people that could hear this and walk away with it and say, that's exactly how I feel, and now I know how to go attack it, you know? But I think it was Christy the other day said that bigger guys, we're very emotional. I find you to be extremely hard on yourself, and I think it comes from a place of excellence. because you want to be so good and so great and such a high achiever that when you do make mistakes or when things don't happen the way you want to, then you're very hard on yourself. Do you think that that's helping you or hindering you in your growth?
I think there has to be a dichotomy or a balance of being hypercritical and hyper-aware. One of the things that I find with most people in my age group, or even anybody in any age group, to be very fair, is that they lack awareness to be critical of their own selves.
Say it again for the people in the back.
They lack awareness for being critical for their own actions. No spatial awareness. No awareness of how their words are being responded to. No awareness of how they create stimuli and respond to stimuli respectively is disturbing. The people that do end up hypercritical or hyper-aware usually are consistently rebuffing, coming back, checking themselves, because each conversation that they're having is almost as if they are watching the conversation in real time. They are watching the action take place in real time in order to trace and check for mistakes. Many people don't do this. The reason why I do it is because I can remember distinctly my father at a young age would tell us, be aware of your surroundings. You have to ensure that you know what's happening, because so much is happening so fast. If you get sucked into the pace of something else, it's over. And what's over? It could be life, it could be the mission, it could be the task at hand, but getting sucked into the momentum of whatever else is happening in the environment and not being aware of it will displace you. And so from that habit, I became more aware of myself, more aware of how I was being received by others, and I really try to check my words, check my actions, check my thoughts very carefully. In my distinct journeys of either creativity, fitness, again, workplace, it then presents itself as something that is like, wow, okay, if you know better, you should be doing better, and you didn't do better. And so that attack begins, that cognitive dissonance begins, and that's really where the trouble might actually happen. Oh, I did this wrong, man. Why did I do this wrong? I shouldn't have done this wrong. I should have known better. Checking now becomes negative self-talk. And the more that we encourage these patterns in our minds, the deeper they become ingrained, and the easier it becomes to speak either negatively about self or negatively about others. So I think it's not necessarily wrong to be aware or quote unquote hyper aware. I think training the mind distinctly to dispel patterns of negative self-talk and allowing oneself to have a little bit of grace. Amen. Despite the level.
Yep.
So I'm the president of the United States. I did something wrong. Other people are at stake. I don't have the area to give myself a lot of grace, but as a human being who's just operating in this level, in friends, in family, in work circles, and not too much stake is at stake rather. So I can afford to give myself the grace. I think a lot of people that are hyper aware don't do that. And I think what we saw, what you're referring to the other day, when I was deep, lost in thought like that, I didn't give myself that.
Yep.
I immediately saw I made a mistake, and therefore this is just like before. This is, you're beyond this, you're above this, you know this is not what's supposed to happen, and yet you let it happen anyway. Look at you. What is this?
Right.
The same way I would challenge somebody else, I began to challenge myself. But quickly I realized after breaking out of that, I went, hit a nice workout real quick, immediately taking that tension and turning it from mental into something kinetic and moving that energy out of my body.
Very smart.
That was how I escaped. But if not, and in my younger days, I would have been stuck in that. That could have been maybe 4 or 5 days of a negative cycle, festering. So I think it really comes down to how can you get out of that negative cycle? How can you really explore ways to either take that energy and transfer it, or be aware of that energy and say, I'm okay in this moment and I give myself the grace to make a mistake.
It's mind-blowing how many people are not self-aware of their own self. I mean, it's just like the word says. But I think you can be too self-critical, like you said, and be stuck in that space. So it's about identifying it, correcting it, and keep moving forward quickly. Because if you stay in it, it could destroy you. The lack of self-awareness is the definition of selfishness.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like I oftentimes feel like when I'm talking, someone's just waiting to talk, like waiting to respond. They're not listening, they're just waiting for their chance to respond. And I think that that's a problem that we have in this world, is that everyone's quick to respond and slow to listen and slow to really take in what someone's trying to give them. The older you get, you really start to understand that. They're like, the less you say and the more you listen, the better. Like, and then the more you read and the more you listen, then just talk. Like, because your action, it always, to me now, like the older I get, it boils down to actions. You know, listen, read, learn, and then don't talk about it. Just show it. Be an example of it. And it happens to me all the time, because we are human, is when you make a mistake, which you will, you correct it on the spot and you keep going and you just keep moving. Again, that's the only way to make the most out of this life. Otherwise, you're missing out on so many opportunities to be great, to elevate where you are and where you're going.